Welcome back to the show, everybody. Well, check it out here. While they say the dollar is collapsing, and you're going to hear about it, we see relationships and reminders about stable coins and major payment companies and BRICS coalition expanding drastically now. And Russia announces digital currencies in their new payment system. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.195 trillion market cap for cryptocurrency. Good afternoon. The market is off by 1.5%. 27,300 plus for Bitcoin right now. 1814 and change for Ethereum. Tether market cap is 81.5 billion plus. XRP is now 45 cents, off by 1.3 in the 24-hour and a full flat 11% on the 7-day. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you what's not off. 10 days from now, it's XRP Las Vegas, baby, and it's going to be on like you have never seen. We have got some of the most incredible people in the space. You have the opportunity, even though it is sold out on Friday, sold out on Saturday, you can get a web ticket right now by clicking this button right here. And hear breaking news from Uphold. You'll hear breaking news from Flare Naming Services, which is a decentralized way to build identities online with the Flare network with your .flare domains for your wallets and websites. Get early access right now and be able to get your spot, your seat at the table to get the hottest domains before anyone else. Click the link to my sponsor underneath and get that ticket. You're not going to want to miss it. Ripple in Wales moved 350 million XRP as price drops below 46 cents, ladies and gentlemen. They're still using it. Remember what Ripple said? And I thought Ripple said it like a boss. They are the only company using a digital asset in commercial production today. Period. Full stop. Remarkable. This is a reminder from back in 2018. And just think about what they've done around the world with the effort that you see and the connections that you're going to hear Brad Garlinghouse talk about, the connections they made in Japan alone back in 2018. Listen to this.
It'd be a hard sales pitch to walk into the Bank of Andy and say, rip out your ACH rail and use Ripple. He'd kind of be like, look, that's not a big problem. That's not a big friction point. If I go in and say to him, hey, your cross-border transactions, you're like, oh, that's a high friction point. My customers are frustrated that there's no transparency in the transaction. There's a lot of reasons to adopt Ripple. What happened, which we didn't really expect in Japan, is because the Japanese local rail isn't particularly efficient, we had all these banks talking to us about cross-border. They're like, well, wait a minute, can't we use this domestically?
Right.
Yeah, you can use it domestically.
Within Japan.
Correct. And so we have, I think now 63 banks that have signed up in Japan. It covers 40% of all accounts in Japan. They're in the process of going live within Japan.
What percentage of your business right now are these Japanese banks? Or at least the relationships in Japan?
Well, in terms of the number of banks, it's over 50% of it. I mean, we publicly announced we work with over 100 financial institutions around the world. I mean, I think said, I think it's 63 in Japan. So, you know, it's a big percentage.
Wow.
And that is very important to understand that was a fact back in 2018. And we know now that they're in over 70 payout markets. The numbers are phenomenal around the world. Yet we wait for clarity. And let us not lose sight as we go through this information, which is mostly covering the geopolitical aspects of what's happening with the financial system throughout the world, that Ripple has been head down, shoulder to the grindstone the entire time, and being sued by the US SEC. And we're waiting for a ruling from the judge, which could come today. It could come tomorrow. We're days away, weeks at most, it would seem. We are very excited to get an answer, but I am even more excited to see what happens after we get a ruling, getting some clarity for Ripple and XRP, the digital asset. This here was out from Whale Chart here. It says Visa partners with Circle to push stablecoin payments. This is not breaking news, however, and I'm just showing this because this goes all the way back to December 2020. If you remember, we talked about this. Circle announced a partnership with Visa to bring benefits of stablecoins to businesses worldwide. Now, they've deepened that relationship, it seems, today versus when they first entered a few years ago. So look, all of this points to the integration of stable coins, digital assets into traditional payment systems like Visa, MasterCard, and so forth. And what an important point it will be to have access to these things, because I want you to listen to this gentleman here who's going to talk to you about the problem with the stunning collapse of the US dollar. Quite drastic the way he paints it here. Take a listen.
A top currency analyst warned last week that de-dollarization is happening faster than people realize. Indeed, that the dollar has already suffered a, quote, stunning collapse. Meanwhile, separate data from central banks around the world confirm that after decades of complacency, the landscape is shifting. The warning came from former Morgan Stanley analyst Stephen Jen, who finds that adjusting for price changes reveals the true speed of de-dollarization, specifically that the dollar's share went from 73% in 2001 to 55% in 2021, at which point it fell off a cliff, losing market share 10 times faster. The dollar plunged 8 percentage points in share in a single year to just 47%. So we lost about double the entire share of the Chinese yuan, and at that pace, the US dollar would be eclipsed in, about 6 years. So what happened in 2022? Simple. Sanctions. Last year, the U.S. froze $300 billion in Russian central bank dollars. That's about $4 trillion in U.S. terms, controlling for GDP. Keep in mind, these were Russia's sovereign dollars. They, and everybody else in the world, thought of them like gold. Now, this was something we hadn't even done during the Cold War, during the height of the Cold War, with hot proxy wars all over the world, because we were run by adults. Why did Biden do it? The goal was to cause bank panics and crash the Russian economy, perhaps to set off mass unemployment and civil unrest. Of course, it backfired. Instead, sending countries around the world in panicked flight from the dollar, lest the U.S. wake up one morning after a spicy night on the town with some flashy new lobbyist and decide to collapse their country too. Perhaps ending in their president being torn into travel-sized pieces by a mob like in Libya. Of course, it was one thing to do this to Libya, but here was a real country, and the weapon of choice was very precisely their own sovereign dollars. And so, overnight, the US dollar went from the world's rock-solid store of value to a political football held hostage to whichever lobbyist or activist caught Joe Biden's eye this week. Where did all those dollars go to? That flight went to the next best thing, the yen, the euro, and to gold. Together, the yen and euro's price-adjusted reserve share soared 5 points over the year, so they gobbled up about 2/3 of what the dollar lost. Now, both Japan and Europe do have inflation, just like America. Japan is running at a big in Japan, 3.5 points. Europe is closer to 8.5. But both currencies have the very appealing feature that they do not topple your country when they don't like your foreign policy. As for gold, a separate article in today's FT reports that central bank gold buying is off the charts. Literally up 152% year on year in 2022, and it is now at 1,136 tons, almost double the record high. The FT, like Jen, blames the sanctions for driving countries off the dollar and into anything else that will hold water. So what is next? If reserve assets are fleeing the dollar, while trade is methodically shifting to bilateral currencies, helped by China, the last man standing on the dollar wall is financial flows, the lubricant in global commerce. These have unique network effects, but they also have unique and growing regulatory risks, which I will have to cover in another video. So bottom line, if the US dollar does continue on this path, we will see soaring inflation, a catastrophic fall in American standard of living, and a US that falls off the world stage, not by choice, but by necessity. All of it.
Now, I tell you, when you think about what he's suggesting there, it is quite impactful if it were to play out exactly like that. Now, Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. That's usually the way you do it, right? So we don't know exactly how it will unfold. But what he is suggesting is certainly one of the outcomes if nothing is done. When we look at where the world is going, just in 70% of the trade deals between China and Russia are now settled in Chinese yuan and Russian rubles. Now, when you think about that, think about what he just said. The inflow, the flow of capital, right? Well, that's where deals come from. That's how you get money flowing. Now, between China and Russia, 70% of those deals are using their own currencies to do them. But it compounds a little bit when you watch this too. Russia finance minister says a new payment system will allow unrestricted use of cryptocurrency in cross-border payments. Now, this is a direct move. You know it's a direct move. You don't have to read the article to understand exactly where they're going here. And I could, but I don't have to. I know that you get it. This is in direct relationship to the sanctions that have been put in place, and they're now moving to put this new payment system in place, which will introduce the use of digital currencies, and that means CBDCs and alike, right? So this gets very, very interesting here. Digital ruble, digital yuan, this is what we're talking about. It is a system of payments that is bound without any restrictions. Two parties come to an agreement, make settlement payments, and no other country can step in and withhold such payments. This is about the sanctions that have put in place from the United States through SWIFT. That's what this is. But we have to worry about the compounding of this, which is that now 19 other countries have submitted membership to join BRICS coalition to strengthen it even. Now you think about this numbers here, the tipping point of this. You know, it's not just as simple as not using, SWIFT anymore, getting around the sanctions. When you start growing BRICS coalition to this size, now you have fractionalized the world from payments and finance. I see the greatest ability to have XRP work out as a payment token and grow to the confidence to be able to supply or to be able to prove out that it can serve rather as a bridge currency someday. And with the growth of BRICS growing as the rate that it is, understanding that it has more than half of the world's population with these 19 applicants, more than half of the natural resources of the world as well to go along with it, something has to be put in place to be able to deal with the fact, even to a degree of what the gentleman was saying about the dollar and about a stunning collapse. If you want to be able to absorb the spillover shocks of some kind of a move of that magnitude, you're going to need to put some kind of a bridge currency in place. And even then, you're still going to have issues, but at least you can begin to put something in place that can alleviate it so the United States can absolutely start to deal with the fact that the global reserve currency status of the US dollar may be in question, certainly challenged at this point. And they can work on strengthening that dollar as a national currency and getting itself reorganized, not having to serve as a global reserve currency going forward in the future. Now, I don't expect this to happen on a Tuesday and it's done by Wednesday. But what we're seeing are moves that are not going back the other way. The world is going to a new system. I think we are at a point now where that is not up for debate anymore. And I remind people, and I'm speculating, Ripple just became, a couple weeks ago, the platinum partner of a global central bank digital currency symposium. And we covered it when it happened back on April 8th. You have to ask yourself, do the largest central banks and governments in the world really truly understand Ripple's technology and the power of XRP and the XRP ledger? Maybe, just maybe they do. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. It's just my digital perspectives. I'll catch all of you on the next one.